Once this is the public hearing of the Public Utilities Committee, joint with the Environment Committee at Columbus City Council. Before we get started tonight, I want to thank everyone for their work for the preparation of today's hearing. Aaron Beck from the Mayor's Office, Scott Belcastro from representing Trey Bell LLC, and Frank Wilson for AEP. Thank you for being here this evening. To the members of the public, thank you for taking the time to tune in tonight virtually to more about the operations and government's plan following the overwhelming passage of Issue 1 in this year's general election. This is the second of 2 hearings this week, both the Ohio Public Utilities Commission, before our next steps in the aggregation process can take place. The purpose of this hearing is to once again learn about the next steps to implement community choice aggregation here in Columbus and to review and comment on that plan moving forward. This hearing is available to live stream on CTV, the Columbus City Council Facebook and YouTube pages, while being broadcast on Spectrum Channel 1024, WOW Channel 3, and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. This video will be posted on the City of Columbus YouTube channel following this event. As I mentioned earlier this week, the primary goals of the city's electric aggregation program will be to provide competitive retail energy supply costs for the Columbus citizens, support renewable energy development, especially local renewable energy generation, to advance Columbus' sustainable economy, and to ensure that suppliers provide quality, reliable service to our customers here in the city of Columbus. The city is committed to an aggregation program that supports sustainability efforts, energy efficiency, equity, and other policy initiatives of the city that benefits all of us here in Columbus. Ordinance number 1642-2020, passed earlier this year, authorized the City of Columbus to perform all necessary actions to effect a governmental aggregation, electricity aggregation program for the city, with an opt-out provisions pursuant to section 4928.20 of the Ohio Revised Code for the residents and small businesses in the incorporated areas of the City of Columbus. The city added this program to the ballot on November 3rd, which was overwhelmingly approved by electors as required by law. We are looking to gather feedback tonight from the members of the public before council votes on ordinance 2648-2020 this Monday, November 23rd. I also want to thank Councilmember Emmanuel Remy, who chairs the Environment Committee of Council. He's unfortunately unable to be here with us this evening as he's preparing for another public hearing of Council later tonight. So excited for everyone to be here, certainly excited to talk about aggregation. I know this is a topic that many in our community are very excited about for all of the reasons that I outlined above, and certainly for a lot of the reasons that the presenters here tonight are going to share about how this program can work and how they can work on behalf of our citizens. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our first presenter tonight, Aaron Beck, who's the Director of Special Projects in the Office of Mayor of Columbus. Aaron, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much, Council Member. I'm just going to share my screen here. Great. Good evening, everyone, or afternoon. Thank you, Councilmember Dorans, again, for hosting this hearing today and for the opportunity to be here and discuss next steps and processes in the city establishing our clean energy aggregation program. Again, my name is Aaron Beck. I am a Director of Special Projects in Mayor Ginther's office, and I'm our Sustainable Columbus liaison, and so have the pleasure to be working on this and open to the public. But for anyone new who may be tuning in, aggregation really is the process through which the city can pool its residents together and contract for energy on their behalf. And so the city committed at the beginning of this year to implementing an aggregation program by 2022 that is powered by 100% clean, renewable energy, really and truly a driving factor in the city's decision to pursue aggregation. And so just as Councilmember Dorans already shared, one of the first critical steps in pursuing an opt-out program is placing the issue on the November ballot for voter approval. And so we are extremely thrilled that on November 3rd, residents in Columbus overwhelmingly approved of this issue. It really is giving the city the ability to move forward with implementation and makes it clear that pursuing clean energy and all of the benefits that it can bring really matters to the residents and citizens of Columbus. So certainly what brings us here today are the next steps in the process for the city to implement a clean energy aggregation program. Now that we have that voter approval and that's been achieved, the city next has to apply to the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio to become a certified government aggregator. And so as part of that filing and application process, the city has to file a governance and operations plan that will serve as a framework for how the aggregation program will operate. And that's what we're really here to discuss and review today. So the governance and operations plan will go before council for approval, and we're expecting it to appear on the November 23rd agenda. And so then once that's been approved, the city can then move forward with our PUCO application. So with some of that background and context, I'm happy to hand things over to Scott Belcastro with Trey Bell, our consultant for the aggregation program and who has really been instrumental in helping us put together this governance and operations plan and is going to kind of walk us through the document.
Hi and good evening. This is Scott Belcastro with Trey Bell. I'm the owner of Trey Bell. Before I get started here, I just wanted to say thank you to Kevin, Aaron, Angela for putting this all together. Thanks Frank Wilson from AEP Energy being here, Councilmember Dorans. Really appreciate everybody's support in getting this thing pushed forward. As Aaron mentioned, we are talking about the plan of operation governance, and as in this document, as a precursor here to our conversation, is meant to be written rather vaguely, not with a lot of detail. More of the detail comes in terms with the MSA and the programming that we'll do and establish later. There's reasons for that through PUCO. We have to send out more notifications, have more of these types of meetings if we were to change this materially. So it's meant to be a structure and a framework for how the program is running. Just as a quick note, Trey Bell's been in business since 2010, and I believe now we are the second largest governmental aggregator here in Ohio. So excited to be a part of this, and I'm going to jump right in here to the next section, the next slide, if you don't mind, Aaron. Just want you to, I'm going to go to the next slide after that, please. Everyone here tonight, every time you see in this green section up here where it says process, each one of these headings comes from the actual document itself, and each one of these is a section within the document. And we just pulled the information out here to highlight the big things so we don't have to get bogged down in going through every single piece of it. This is an opt-out program, and all that means is that everyone will be given the rights to opt out of the program versus opt in. We do that because if we do an opt-out program, the suppliers, when they look at the load, they know that they're going to get so many folks being in the program. If we were to do an opt-in program and they came to Scott and said, hey, how many people are going to join the program? I have no choice but to tell them I have no idea. And based on my no idea comment, the suppliers are most likely to tell me that we have no idea what the rate is going to be that we can do for you in terms of the volume and the discounts that we're going to be receiving. So it is an opt-out program. I want everybody to know that at the end of the day, we're really talking about an opt-out letter as far as the process goes will be sent out. They will be given notifications prior to the enrollment. We will be talking about getting in and out of the program. There is parts of this that talks about that. Negotiating with a supplier. We want you to know that in this document says that we will be negotiating with a supplier to get an MSA. And the other thing is that we are developing this plan and it does need to be approved. So if we can go to the next slide, please, that'd be great. The aggregation program management, and all they're saying is inside this document that there will be, that they're saying that there is somebody going to be managing the program. The city is utilizing a consultant, that being Trey Bell, to provide the necessary expertise to represent the city's interest in legislative and regulatory matters. As I already mentioned, Traybell has over 10 years experience in running these programs. Our council has over 20 years as an energy attorney, and right here in Ohio. So we have a lot of great experience representing you. We want you to know that through the aggregation program management, there will be, with the selected supplier, no matter what supplier we chose, would include an administrative fee for Traybell and the grant money to run the sustainability efforts, energy efficiency, and other policy priorities of the city that benefit the Columbus community. So all that is embedded right in the rate, and that's typically how it works in every single program that we've ever managed and seen. And we work in and do monitor other states as well. So just to let you know, that's how it gets run. Next slide, please. Thank you. We've already talked a little bit about us negotiating with the potential CREST provider. We're just merely saying that that we will get into a negotiation process. This has already been underway. We did things a little differently. And in this case, AEP Energy was selected as the energy supplier. We are going through a negotiation process. And all this says here in this section, the selection of contract, is that our CREST provider, the supplier, is certified by the PUCO, is registered with AEP Ohio, and more or less just has the ability to provide electric to all the residents and businesses here in the AEP Ohio utility area. Just so everyone knows, the CREST provider, that is another way to say that is supplier. The CREST provider, or 5 years. Next slide, please. The electric supply charges, they will be fully and prominently disclosed in Consumi, talking about the opt-out letters, which we will send at a later date. And we're going to cover opt-out letters here in just a minute. Next slide, please. This talks about AEP's regulated customer classification and rates. Please keep in mind, as a lot of these sections and this whole document is really built around the regulatory PUCO rules that we have to abide by. So I know this is a little about this. Participants will be continued to be billed through AEP Ohio's service and delivery charges by AEP Ohio on one statement. All it's really saying here is AEP Ohio will create residential and non-mercantile customers in any and all customer classifications. Again, the city and or Traybell is not setting these classifications. They are set up through the PUCO, through the tariffs, and we cannot change them. But all the people will be, anybody within these eligible residential and non-mercantile accounts will be eligible for the program. Next slide, please. This section here, developing the pool of eligible accounts. The city and its consultant will request the eligible distribution utility to provide the current customer information. All we're really saying is we're going to go to the utility, we're going to ask for an eligible customer list request. The information that comes on that would be customer name, service address, load data, whether or not they have a current contract with another supplier. Because we're deregulated, roughly 35% of all AEP Ohio customers have chosen another supplier. And so we cannot take you out of that contract that you've entered into. And we will be scrubbing, so to speak, the list to remove those folks from the list, leaving us with an eligible customer list. It does not mean that those folks who have their own supplier currently can't join, and they will be able to join at a later date. Please, next slide. So this is kind of a very, very important section that we're going to spend just a little bit more time here. All eligible customers will be notified in writing of the rates, charges, and other terms and conditions of participating in the aggregation program and they will be automatically enrolled in the aggregation program unless they opt out or decline participation. This is called an opt-out letter. The consumers, all of you, will be given 21 days from the postmark date of the opt-out letter, which to notify the city, really you're going to be notifying AEP Energy of your wish to opt out or decline participation in the aggregation program without penalty or fees. So you'll be given a full 21 days to look over the material and decide if you want to stay or leave. Consumers opting out of the program will remain on the utilities standard service offer. I like to call it the default rate, and until they decide to select an approved CREST provider. Just as a side note, because of deregulation, we still hear that people think that they're getting electric from AEP Ohio. It's simply not true. All customers are receiving electric from an alternative supplier. These rates have been established by layered in auctions, kind of complex stuff behind the scenes, and it's stated on, and the rate is established in that manner. But everyone is receiving electric from someone other than AEP Ohio at this point. Please, next slide. Customers who opt out of the program by returning the postcard, I should say, by returning a postcard. It's usually written right on the bottom of the opt-out letter, or by calling a toll-free number, which is the simplest way to do it. AEP Energy will have set up a toll-free number. It will be clear on the opt-out letter. You can call in and get out, or by other means. Likely there may be options for us to get opt in or out of the program online. So just keep that in mind. That will be again disclosed in the opt-out letter. After the initial 21-day opt-out period has elapsed, all customers who have not notified the city or the consultant or the CREST provider of their desire to opt out of the aggregation program will be enrolled automatically. No other steps will need to be taken. So if you're a customer, you get the opt-out letter, you read it, you like what you see, you take no action, you do nothing. You'll be included in the program. If you think that you don't want to use the program, you simply, as we've already talked about, use any one of the number of means to opt out. And just keep in mind, you're always welcome to join at a later date. Please, next slide. Thank you, Aaron. Pursuant to the Ohio law and PUCO rules, consumers currently ineligible to participate, as we've already talked about, are those who are located outside the city boundaries, those who are already in a contract, and certainly those within a special rate contract with the utility. What am I talking about here? PIP customers, percentage of income payment customers, and customers whose account are not current with the utility, meaning you haven't paid it on time. The separate aggregation of PIP customers is under the direction of the state of Ohio. You're already receiving a discount, as the name implies, as a percentage of your income payment, percentage of income payment plan. So you will already be receiving that. And again, we're just trying to comply with the rules, and we're just stating that here in the plan of operation and governance. Please, next slide. Okay, so consumers enrolled in the aggregation by the CREST provider will receive a letter from their utility. So what ends up happening here is once the opt-out process is done, AEP Energy will be taking that list and sending it over to AEP Ohio, the utility. And AEP Ohio, again, by law, will send out another postcard and allow customers 7 more days to opt out. The reason for the postcard is simply to let you know that this switch is taking place. And again, you should already know that by the 21 days that you received from the letter initially. But it never fails that people freak out and don't realize what that letter is. So you'll be receiving a letter from AEP Ohio, 21 days, that's the actual opt-out letter. You'll be receiving another postcard from the utility. I wanted to mention too here that I believe now they're doing it via email, but you'll be receiving an email saying that there has been a switch and notifying it If you want to stay in the program, do absolutely nothing, and you'll be a part of this great program. The CREST provider will report to the city and the consultant the status of the aggregation program enrollment on a monthly basis. AEP Energy will be reporting various pieces of information to us so that we can report to you and be transparent in our process. And I do know that AEP has some plans to have additional transparency through their sites. Next slide, please. Leaving the aggregation program. In addition to the opt-out period we've already talked about, I wanted you guys to know, everyone out here to know, the 21 days to opt out without a fee is a PUCO regulatory process. In addition to that, there's a contractual aspect of this. The contractual aspect means that we are negotiating no early termination fee regardless of the regulatory rules. This means the whole thing is moot, meaning you can leave whenever you feel like. You don't have to worry about getting the aha moment, because there is none. You can leave whenever you feel like. Any consumer who opts out of the aggregation program during the initial opt-out or subsequent opt-outs will be returned to the utility's default rate, as we've already discussed. And just so you guys know, there will be periodic other opt-out letters sent out. They're called refreshes throughout the year. A refresh just means that people who establish new service within the boundaries of the city will be, whether that be a residential account and or business account, a new business, will be able to will receive a letter opting out of the program, or if you want to stay in, do nothing. But it just gives you the terms and conditions of the offer in effect at that time. Please, next slide. New and returning participants. Again, this is a part of the plan of operation and governance. It just merely states that those who leave the program and wish to return, those who affirmatively to choose to participate in the program, and consumers who move into the city after the initial opt-out period will be afforded the opportunity to enroll in the aggregation program as an opt-in basis at the same price, terms, and conditions. We just covered that. I'm just kind of covering it here one last time. You can look on, most likely will be on the Clean Energy Columbus website, AEP's website. You can call the city, you can call Traybell. We do have customer service folks here. My entire office is prepared to answer any questions that you might have. And a lot of people find it quite helpful. We'll get you where you need to go. But throughout the process, new and returning participants will be able to get in or out of the program. Next slide, please. If you have a home within the city limits and you move across town, but you still are within the AEP utility, you can still directly use that account and get re-enrolled. You don't have to re-enroll. You'll already be enrolled. Just letting you know that you can do that. There's no switching fees of any kind. There are no costs to joining this program or leaving it. Because we're really Clean Energy Columbus is the name of the website. The initiatives that the city is carrying out, very important for them to have renewable energy. For any of you that are interested in having your own solar on your home, there is a net metering participants. I want you to know that you will be able to use the aggregation program, and the CREST provider, in this case AEP Energy, will allow net metering of those accounts if you have signed an interconnection agreement with the applicable utility, that being AEP Ohio, and subject to all the Ohio rules and regulations. Lots of words there. Basically what we're telling people in this part of the document is that you will be able to use net metering. So it's a really nice feature for those who want to put renewable energy on their home. Please, next slide. In the billing section of the plan, we're just telling you that we plan to use the consolidated billing. AEP Ohio will be sending out a statement, just as you've always received in the past. And on that statement will be listed the transmission, distribution, customer charges, as well as the supplier charges. In this case, as we've mentioned, AEP Energy will be the supplier. You only need to pay AEP Ohio as you've always done. Nothing changes. It's so easy to be involved in this program. So it is just one bill. You pay AEP Ohio, and the utility will pay the supplier. No problem. Next slide, please. Listed in this document is, if you ever needed to see it, who do you call in the event of power outages, disconnect notices with the utility, or meter reading and billing questions. All of those are handled by AEP Ohio. Their toll-free number is sitting right here. If you ever want to see this document, you'll be able to find out. It'll direct you in the right direction. Enrollment in or opting out of the aggregation, you generally will want to call the supplier, that being AEP Energy, and you're welcome to call Trey Bell if you have other questions, and we will help you get enrolled as well. Generally speaking, I'm going to direct you to call AEP Energy and get enrolled. Aggregation program questions or concerns. You're welcome to call the city at the number here listed. I always encourage, as I've already mentioned, call Trey Bell. We have the whole staff here is ready to answer your questions. You might have something specific to your home, talking about solar. What if you're going to do something different in the near future? Give us a call. We're here to help. Unresolved disputes where you're angry with somebody or with the program, you don't understand something, you're welcome to call the PUCO where you can get answers as well, and they will direct you to their site. I'll just tell you, PUCO is a great resource, as is the OCC website. You can go there and learn about aggregation. Sometimes we get calls from people who say, I had no idea this was done to me. How did you do this? Well, we voted on it this past November with an unbelievable, 96% passage rate. So it's a fantastic, unbelievable support for this program. And that's how it got to be. So next slide, please. Okay, so the reliability and indemnification of consumers, again, regulatory stuff, big words. If for any reason the CREST provider fails to provide uninterrupted service, the city and its consultant will attempt to acquire an alternative power supply. If this attempt fails, participants will default to the utility's standard service offer. Again, the default rate with the utility. I'm here to tell you, you will not be without power. As it says here in the next bullet, you will always get power if it goes out, or pardon me, if the CREST provider can't deliver. And I don't foresee that happening. And again, unless we have some kind of storm damage or something fairly severe that would interrupt that process. Next slide, please. We do have a section here for participants' rights. The takeaways from that is that the supplier contract shall also contain non-discrimination provisions to ensure equitable treatment of all customer classes. Low-income consumers shall remain subject to all provisions of Ohio law and PUCO rules and regulations, as they may be amended from time to time regarding their rights to participate in the program. So all those laws that happen, they will still be in effect here through the aggregation program. Most of these laws, you're already getting those protections. We're just affording them and stating them in this document. Next slide, please. The aggregation program participants are subject to the same standards and responsibilities. Look, there's no difference here in the aggregation program as any other. Payment of billings, you have to pay your bill. And that continues even though there's an aggregation. Access to metering and other equipment necessary to carry out utility operations. If the utility, as it's always done, requires a meter on your home or business, then you need to continue to have that. A very important note about business interval metering. Businesses, if you have a business here in Columbus or a commercial account number, for every SDI number whose maximum monthly billing demand for the most recent 12-month period is 200 kW or greater, You will be required to get an interval meter installed on your facilities. I'm here to tell you that's already required by you. What does 200 kW mean? I'm not talking about kWh. These two issues are always confused. This is a demand, 200 kW demand versus 200 or 1,000 kWh. kWh is how much of it you're using, and kW is a demand charge, how much at any given one point in time. All right, so if you are using 200 kW, this usually doesn't apply to most mom and pop stores throughout Columbus. It's really going to be more applicable to a manufacturer or bigger facility where the demand could be very greater than 200 kW. If you're not sure, call Trey Bell, call AEP Energy, they'll explain it to you. Most commercial clients know and can see the differentiation of kWh versus kW rate on your bill. And it is written from the letter, from the utility that you're going to get on there. Please don't be, freaked out by it or confused. Most folks, it doesn't apply to you. If, again, you have questions, call us. Next slide. Termination of the aggregation program. Look, if this program comes to an end, we don't want to renew it. It's just putting it in this document that we had at least 60 days prior to such program termination, you will have the option to return to the applicable utility standard service offer or select another approved CREST provider. A notification will be sent out to you, and I sincerely hope that this program goes forever and this won't ever happen. But I think that covers every section of the plan of operation and governance. And Aaron, do you want to head to the next slide and take it over?
Sure. Great. Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing all of that great information about the governance and operations plan that the city is planning to file. Certainly if we were in normal times and we're gathered together in a room, we would have the actual document to hand out to folks. But please do know, just like Scott was saying, we will have that available on the cleanenergycolumbus.org website. It will be part of the legislation that is going to council. Certainly the sustainability office, or I'm sure Councilmember Dorans' office is able to provide it to folks, if you're wanting to review that full document. And I did just want to share a little bit of the timeline and next steps, just for a little bit more context as to how this plan fits in with overall implementation. So certainly if we kind of direct attention to the dark blue banner and the end of Q4 for 2020, we're certainly here in November. We have aggregation approved by the voters. We're doing our 2 public hearings on the governance and operations plan. We'll get that approved by council, and then that is when the city can then apply to the PUCO to become a certified government aggregator, so that we can kind of keep the process moving forward. And so then looking forward to December, we'll continue those MSA negotiations with AEP Energy. We do have an aggregation advisory group. I mentioned that earlier in the hearing. That is open and available to the public. We encourage folks to join those meetings, to listen in, to learn, to provide more feedback, ask questions. We do plan on hosting an advisory group meeting in December, probably looking at the second week. And then looking forward into 2021. So it will be early in 2021, January, February timeline, that we believe we will have that final master supply agreement kind of all finalized, and that will then go to council for approval and passage. We're certainly going to have public hearings as part of that process so that we can share more with the public, like Scott was saying, about what the rate is going to be, what the term is going to be, and just a lot more details in terms of some of the policy for the program. We'll continue to have advisory group meetings, look at standing up then the program in March and April. And then we're thinking it's going to be May is when we'll look to see those opt-out letters going out that Scott spoke about. And then it will be June that the program will really begin. And So thank you again, everyone, and to Councilmember Dorans for the time this evening. If you are looking for more information on aggregation, we've shared it a couple of times, but that cleanenergycolumbus.org website has a lot of information. If you're more interested in the advisory group, coming to some of those meetings, you can go to columbus.gov/sustainable/aggregation, and that's where you can find all of those meeting information. And we will be posting the upcoming meeting information there as well. And with that, I will hand things back over to Councilmember Dorans.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Scott, both for that very thorough presentation. I want to ask a couple of questions before we get to the public comment section of the hearing. I think most of these questions I asked on Tuesday night, but I think the answers are important for folks that may be tuning in for the first time tonight. So, Erin, on Tuesday we talked a little bit about, what is the governance plan and what is not, and what is potentially part of the master service agreement, or what is that, or what is just part of, sort of city programming, right? So, one of the things that, I care deeply about, within this program is making sure that, as projects are developed under this program, that, those projects are being built with, union labor and, being built with folks that are being paid a living wage and healthcare. That's not in the document we're talking about today. I know there's folks that are, on the line here today that are really interested in what the community grants portion of the aggregation program can do for folks in our community, particularly in opportunity neighborhoods within the city, whether that's, energy efficiency or other types of programs. That's not in the document that we're reviewing here today. So I want to know if you could just take a moment and talk a little bit about, what goes in the governance plan versus what may be in the master service agreement versus what may be a city policy or a city program that would be outside of the governance policy or the master service agreement. Erin, do we have you?
I could take that, Erin, if you Erin, I'm going to jump in with her on this one, if you don't mind.
Scott, if you want to jump in, I think Erin may be having some problems with her internet.
Yeah, no worries. Really, the plan of operation and governance, again, a general document, is meant to be kind of open so that there's flexibility later on without having to go back and touch the document. The MSA really talks about specifically the governmental aggregation, the electric supply itself. And then any of the programming that we're going to be doing at a later date will be a separate piece. And I'm talking about programming with regards to renewable energy and or sustainability and programs that the city chooses to use its grant funding to create. So those are the three different pieces that we'll be looking at.
Thanks, Scott. I know, Erin, are you back with us? I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Yes, sorry about that. I think the internet was acting up a little bit there. But yeah, I think Scott hit it right on the head and did a great job of explaining it. I really looked, and he has helped us understand that the governance and operations plan is really meant to be a framework for how the program mechanics would work. That's kind of how I look at it and think about it. And then just like he was saying, we will have that MSA with AEP Energy where we're going to see a little bit more of the details like rate, term. We're having conversations with them right now about workforce development opportunities, especially when it comes to, some of the actual physical build projects. And then just like Scott was saying, there's also the community grant portion where we're having a lot of great conversation with the community. That's the funding that would be coming back to the city that we intend to use and plan to use for sustainability efforts. And there's still a lot of time to give, input on that. We want to hear from folks. And that's definitely something we'll be talking about again, too, at our advisory group meeting in December.
Great. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, Scott. Scott, I think you mentioned this in your presentation several different times, but I think one of the things that, I have certainly heard from a lot of folks in the community, whether it's, been at, different area commissions or otherwise, people are going to be notified of the program. They're going to be in the pool. How many different sort of touch points can folks expect, whether it's by email or postcard in the mail in order to be informed One, about the rate, which I know that's been a huge question that folks have had, to make sure that folks understand what that rate is, and whether or not how and if they want to opt out of the program.
Sure. Just so you guys, so everybody knows, you're going to be getting the opt-out letter. You'll be getting that at the beginning of the program. Just so you guys, everyone knows, there are no fees to get in or out of the program, and you'll be, if you decide to leave, you can always get back in later. If you do end up leaving later, or if you move across town or something, you will be getting potentially another letter at a later date notifying you. Just due to regulatory rules, at least every 3 years, we have to send out an opt-out letter. That's the minimum, or the least amount of touches that we have to have. So every 3 years, you will get another letter notifying you of the terms and conditions, and you'll have the opportunity to review it and decide if you want to continue to be in it or leave the program.
Thanks. And then a couple of quick points of clarification. So, what happens when, someone moves within the city? So, they move, let's just say, from one neighborhood to another, and they go to reestablish service, and they were already in the aggregation pool. Will they need to do anything special in order to remain within the pool?
Generally, as long as you're staying within the utilities, the city boundaries, number one, and within the AEP Ohio utility, there will not be any special steps that need to be taken. So, but if you are coming from outside the city and you're moving into the city for the first time, you will need to establish an AEP Ohio utility count number first. Typically, you wait 30 days. Once that number's been established, then you can call into AEP Energy, the supplier, and get enrolled in the program.
And Scott, you got to my last question before I could even ask it. So way to anticipate. So that's all the questions I have for you all this evening, because I want to make sure we've got enough time for members of the public who have testimony tonight. And certainly if they have questions for any of the parties here tonight, we'll try and direct those to the right folks and try and get an answer here today. But obviously, if we're unable to provide them with an answer, we'll make sure that we try and get their contact information through my office, and we'll make sure they're connected with the appropriate party for follow-up. So we have 4 public speakers here tonight that I think are all with us here on WebEx. I'm going to go ahead and call them on the order in which we received them. So those speakers, if they could state their name, any organization that they represent. Our goal at council is to try and keep these to at least 3 minutes or so, but if you run a little over, that's okay. And then, if you have a specific question for one of the parties here, let us know, and we'll try and get that answer here tonight. But the first public testimony we have tonight is from Randy Lepluck from the Ohio Environmental Council. Randy, are you with us?
I am. Thank you, Councilmember Dorans.
Thank you, Randy. Go ahead and take it away.
Great. Chair Dorans, Chair Remy, and members of Columbus City Council, my name is Randy Lepluck, and I'm the VP of Energy Policy for the Ohio Environmental Council Action Fund. Part of our mission is to protect and enhance the environment and the health of all Ohio communities by advancing critical policy priorities. Thank you again for allowing me to provide testimony on the Community Choice Aggregation Plan. I just want to start off by saying a huge thank you and congratulations to the City of Columbus administration, the council, staff, and all Columbus residents for overwhelmingly passing the Community Choice Aggregation ballot initiative earlier this month. The OAC Action Fund really applauds the work of the city administration, city council, and staff for the work done to educate Columbus residents on the importance of community choice aggregation and moving our city to a sustainable future. The measure passed with resounding support. 76% of Columbus voters chose to transition away from dirty, harmful energy sources and move toward a future powered by 100% clean, renewable energy that provides cleaner air and water for generations to come. This victory on issue 1 in the aggregation plan Columbus committed to makes the city a climate action leader and really puts us on the map as the Midwest's largest community choice aggregator. Community choice aggregation provides the city an opportunity to embrace clean energy in a way that ensures cleaner air, healthier climate, and good paying jobs while moving our city toward a more equitable future. An innovatively designed program will permit the city to provide competitive electric rates for Columbus citizens and small businesses while also supporting local renewable energy development, implementing robust energy efficiency programs. Columbus will be able to invest in opportunity neighborhoods through installation of measures to reduce energy waste that saves money on bills and lift up Central Ohio residents by requiring intentional hiring and livable wages through these programs. OEC Action Fund really appreciates the operation and governance plan that the city will submit to the Public Utilities Commission to move forward with its aggregation efforts. The plan clearly spells out the city's intention of using the 100% clean energy goal by 2022 and moving the city's 1.7 million megawatt hours of electricity, particularly with a substantial portion of the supply met by renewable projects right here in Central Ohio and within the Buckeye State, will reduce our annual carbon emissions by 1.2 million metric tons. The plan also clearly spells out steps necessary to notify residents of the program and gives them the opportunity to opt out, should they so choose. We also appreciate the flexibility to allow residents to opt back into the program at the same price, term, and conditions of the current offer. Thank you again for holding these public hearings and for providing the opportunity for input from the community. OEC Action Fund looks forward to continuing to work with the city to ensure the Master Services Agreement clearly identifies how the community grant funds will be used to put our city on a path toward a more equitable and sustainable clean energy future. Thank you again.
Thank you for your testimony, Randy, and appreciate your engagement and OEC's engagement in this entire process. I know, you and I and other folks from OEC sat down over a year ago to sort of talk about this policy, and you all have been a great champion for it and advocate for equity and other measures throughout this program so far. So really appreciate you being here. Next up, we have Mr. Connor Willis. Connor, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Take it away.
Thanks, Councilmember Dorans, Aaron, Scott, and the team for such a detailed presentation. My name is Connor Willis. I'm with Community Renewable Energy. We're focused on building renewable energy projects here in Ohio and elsewhere, focused on nonprofits and affordable housing partners in the community. I really have 3 comments on the governance plan that I'm hoping the team can share some insights on. The first is, as I understand this, I realize it's a framework, but it is a framework that may govern the next 5 to 15 years of renewable energy here in Columbus. And 15 years is a really long time to do anything. It is a particularly long time in the renewable energy field, where both the technology is changing so rapidly and the public policy, while lagging a little bit behind, is changing rapidly as well. And it seems to make sense that we have some sort of program evaluation clause within the governance plan to evaluate how this might change and how we can take advantage of improvements in this space over time. So for example, costs are coming down rapidly in utility scale solar. It may make sense in 7 years to allow different customers who are currently ineligible now for various reasons the ability to opt in and be members of the aggregation program. I realize the folks who are involved in the percentage of income payment plans, that is governed by state law. But if state law changes and those folks or others are eligible to be a member of this program, they should have the opportunity to do so. And I think we need a clause in here that allows us the flexibility to go back and visit some of these items. So that's my first comment. My second comment is, this is a public document, and as Councilman Dorans said at the outset, there are several public goals and priorities that we have stated for this aggregation program. I think those should be established here in the governance plan. If the city were to adopt, let's say, a climate action plan or a comprehensive plan or some other sort of document, it would clearly state what the priorities are for this effort. And in fact, if you go on the PUCO's website, the city of Cincinnati has done just this. They have specific public goals to acquire the best market rate available for electricity supply, to encourage environmental protection through contract provisions. Some of the exact same things that we're talking about here, I think, should be in this governance plan. I think that allows us just sort of additional leverage as we are negotiating this master supply agreement. The last comment I have is just a specific question. I realize the governance plan is somewhat cut and dry. That being said, over 15 years, lots of things can change. And I'm wondering what the opportunity is to amend the governance plan. Is that stated here. So I know I asked a lot here, but would appreciate any insights from Scott and the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Would love to throw that to Scott. I think there's a couple of concrete questions there, and maybe one sort of overarching one to noodle on a little bit. So, Scott, I'll let you start, and if Aaron, if you have anything to add, please feel free to jump in.
Happy to take it. So, under your first thing in program evaluation later, this document does say meeting, regulatory rules. If a rule changes, it's still, we have to meet whatever rule that's taking effect. So it is written, I think, vaguely. It doesn't have to say it. It's already there that if the rules change, we've already captured that change by way of the document. So the second thing that you've mentioned in here was the goals of this program. And the program goals, I believe, are stated in the overview section. Was there something beyond that you were asking or pointing forth? I think even 1, 2, paragraph 2 and 3 really do lay out some of the goals that the city is pursuing.
Connor, are you still with us? Scott, I'm not sure Connor is still with us, so we may want to connect you with him after the hearing, but Aaron, I think Aaron's got something to add.
Yeah, just Councilmember, I was just going to kind of back up what Scott was saying. I think Connor kind of had two main questions, or what I understood, kind of two main questions, which is, I did want to reassure that we do have the ability to change this document if we needed to, and to make amendments. That is actually something that we discussed with Trey Bell. We talked about, do we need to add a section in that kind of talks about a mechanism for amending or changing the document? But my understanding is those guidelines and rules already exist at the PUCO, so there's nothing really prohibiting us from going in sometime in the future and making amendments or some changes to the document itself. There's just a process that we have to follow. So again, we'd kind of have to go through the 2 public hearings and kind of just get that filed again. I might be missing some details there, but there is a process to amend the document if we ever needed to in the future. And then in terms of the goals, yes, Scott is definitely correct. There is an overview section at the very beginning of the document that really talks about the city's goals and commitments to 100% renewable and clean energy. I believe we may have even talked about our carbon neutrality goal in there as well. I don't want to misstate on that, but we can definitely follow up if there was something more specific as well that Connor was looking for. So
I just want to echo, sorry, Councilmember, I just wanted to echo what Aaron said. This document can be amended at a later date. Again, it's an arduous process here of trying to either do these 2 public meetings, put it in a newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, and then have it. But it can be done. And then also there is another way to do it through notifications. So this document doesn't have to live here for 15 years as it sits. It can be amended. But it just takes it does take some effort. And many of the things that you're asking for will be negotiated as well into the MSA, Management Service Agreement, between the city and the supplier. So if there are specific things, please reach out to us, myself or Aaron, and be glad to hear what other items you'd like to have or would recommend having in here. Thanks for the input.
So I have a follow-up question from both Connor and sort of Scott from you and Aaron's points. So just from that amendment perspective, and one of the things that I want to make sure that from a city council perspective, we're the legislative body that tends to interact with the public quite a bit. So I want to understand our role within that. So if there's an amendment that says, say the PIP program changes at the state level, and we need to go back and make sure that those individuals are able to participate in the aggregation program, would that process, I know, Scott, you mentioned that we would need to go ahead and do 2 public hearings again to make amendment. Would that then need to come before council again for a council action? in order to make that kind of amendment, or do we know sort of how that process would work from a legislative standpoint, whether or not that would just need to be something that the city files with the PUCO, or would we have to take legislative action?
No, that as long as it's something that the PUCO rules are requiring and regulations, I mean, from the document already, low-income consumers shall remain subject to all provisions of Ohio law and PUCO rules and regulations as they may be amended from time to time regarding their rights to participate. So in that case, if it is a regulatory rule or change, as long as it's not conflicting with what's written in the document, I wouldn't think we'd have to touch the document again, because we're already conforming and we have to conform to it anyhow through this document.
But beyond that, if we wanted to make a change that you say wasn't related there, that would likely require us to go through a legislative process to make that change?
Yeah, I think if you had a situation where, let's just say that we weren't going to use 100% renewable energy. By the way, that can't happen because the ballot language says that's the way we wanted it. But as an example, let's just say we weren't going to use it. That's a material change in what we're doing. So we have to then change the document to reflect that we will not be using 100%. But that clearly isn't going to be the case. If there's something material that affects the consumer, like say the initial 21-day opt-out period goes from 21 to 31 days, I don't know that we'd have to change this because I think it's part of the rules, but I've not seen that before. So I don't know that I have a clear answer. I think I'd have to get back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Next, we have Miss Rachel Wagner from, I believe, the Ready for 100 campaign. Rachel, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Rachel, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Rachel Wagner. I'm here with Ready for 100 Columbus. You are correct. And we are overwhelmingly happy that this community choice aggregation program has passed on the ballot. And like the speaker before me was saying, there are some goals that have been a part of this program idea from the very start. Goals like creating a long-term pricing program that facilitates new wind and solar projects and doesn't have escalating cost components, and also allows customers the freedom of choice with the ability to opt out upfront or terminate with no penalties at any time. And also part of the goals were to provide a funding mechanism for innovative city-administered sustainability and environmental justice programming. And this is something that the organization I represent is really passionate about. And actually, I had a conversation with some people who work in the city of Cincinnati, and they are very recently implementing some programs that are pretty similar. And the funding for that comes from a settlement between Duke Energy and the city of Cincinnati. But the goals of those programs are very similar to what we've been talking about in the community choice aggregation external advisory meetings. So I'm just going to speak about that a little bit right now, just to kind of sum up what I learned and provide a little bit of education and maybe inspiration. But I actually included a document. I gave that to Kevin McCain, and it's like an outline of what I'll be summing up right now. So when I was speaking with Savannah Sullivan and Carla Walker from City of Cincinnati, they were talking about specifically addressing high energy burdens in low-income communities in their area, and especially programs that will address the split incentive between tenants and building owners when it comes to energy efficiency upgrades. And what they did was they partnered with a lot of nonprofit organizations which already serve Cincinnati communities in order to carry out these energy efficiency and sustainability initiatives. So part of the program is to help people get money off of their energy bill for the year. And part of that is for households, specifically in multifamily units, specifically they have to be of a certain income level, and they can receive up to $500 off of their energy bill for the year by going through an energy efficiency educational program, answering basic survey questions, and getting a free energy assessment of the unit that they live in and kind of an energy strategy. So those are some things we're doing. Yeah, and that's fine. So there's definitely a lot more information, but it's included in the document. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Rachel, for being here. And again, I know you have been to council multiple times, both in person and virtually, as we've been through this process, and certainly have been active with the advisory group. So thank you for being such a great advocate as well as we've moved through this, this journey, both on the ballot at the city and as we implement the program. So appreciate you lending your voice to this. Finally, we have, I believe, with us Kathy Cohen-Becker, who I believe is also with the Ready for 100 campaign. Kathy, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead, Kathy.
Great. So thank you for the opportunity to testify today about community choice aggregation in Columbus. My name is Kathy Cohen-Becker, and I'm chair of Ready for 100 in Ohio. And as you know, it's a campaign of the Sierra Club to ask cities to commit to 100% renewable energy. Cities are responsible for 70% of carbon emissions, and Columbus is the 14th largest city in the country and the 6th highest carbon emitting state. So our share of these emissions is significant. So first, we want to thank you, Councilmember Dorans and Councilmember Remy, for your vision and leadership in spearheading this ambitious initiative. With the passage of Issue 1, Columbus will set up the largest electric aggregation program in the Midwest, all for 100% renewable energy. And this will lower our carbon emissions by 1.2 million metric tons per year, the equivalent of taking 260,000 cars off the road. So even better, this electricity will be supplied through construction of local solar and wind projects in Ohio, creating hundreds of good-paying jobs and kicking off a whole new clean energy industry. And finally, the Columbus Aggregation Program will generate money for a community grants program to benefit our residents and businesses, especially in our opportunity neighborhoods. So it's rare that a single program is good for the environment, good for jobs, and good for equity all at once, but this electric aggregation program in Columbus is such a program, and we could not be prouder that we passed it in Columbus by a vote of 76%. It's a national model for energy done right. So one aspect of the aggregation program still taking shape is the community grants. And if my math is right, the aggregation program will create about $1.7 million each year for these grants. And that's a lot of money, but the need is great and it could go very quickly. So we see three primary ways to use these funds: energy efficiency, renewable energy, and equity. So for example, Columbus has done 30,000 home energy audits, many in low-income neighborhoods, but now we need to help these homeowners make the needed energy upgrades. And we also need incentives for residents and businesses to install solar panels to lower our emissions even further. On equity, we need to prioritize the most vulnerable areas through programs such as energy upgrades at the 7 settlement houses in Columbus, or addressing the split incentive by getting landlords to make energy investments that lower utility bills for renters. And I'll just say that the information Rachel is providing has a lot of really good ideas about how to do everything I just said. So thank you for your leadership on energy aggregation. The science says we have to cut carbon emissions in half by 2030 if we want a livable planet. And aggregation will get us 11 to 19% of the way there, depending on how you count. So Columbus is going to need several other big, bold programs to reach this goal of cutting our emissions in half by 2030. But this is a substantial part, and may it pave the way for many more climate opportunities to come.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate you being here tonight and also being a great advocate for this program down the line. One quick follow-up for you, I think you, Scott, because you have been involved with so many of these programs across Ohio. We've talked a lot about the rate still to be negotiated here. How often will that rate change? I know that's something that both Rachel mentioned and Connor mentioned about sort of that price certainty, so that there's not sort of these escalating costs over time. We know that energy prices go up and down over time. But one of the positives of an aggregation program is sort of locking in that price for a certain amount of time to give folks at every income spectrum, some certainty about what they can expect to pay. So can you just speak to that, of what those terms typically are for that commodity price, so people can understand at home a little bit more about what they can expect to pay and how long those rates are typically locked in for?
Go ahead, Frank. I know you're thinking about it.
He tosses me the hard questions. No, I'm happy to speak to it. It's an excellent question, Councilmember Dorans. So there's three components that I want you to think about. We are going to be building assets throughout the state of Ohio that will take time to build. And we are projecting, based off of the requirements communicated to us by the city, that these customers will begin the program the summer of 2021. So we will be prepared to serve those customers with one product that should be a fixed rate through the first term, which would most likely be 12 months. And please keep in mind that we are almost in daily discussions with Aaron and the rest of the city of Columbus, and of course, Trey Bell and Scott Castro. The second period will be a mix of the assets that the developers are going to be building for this program throughout the state, and then the other product that we're using to get us into that full-on renewable aspect. That'll be from 2021 until 2022, and then following 2022, we will be on a fixed rate for the remainder of the term, whatever we negotiate between AEP Energy, Trey Bell, and the city of Columbus. One thing to pricing to keep in mind is that we are building, or the organizations we're working with are building utility scale solar. And Connor was absolutely right. Prices are coming down in a lot of these areas. The way to look at this is there's a couple of different ways to think about it. If I were to put solar on my house, or battery storage, or other things, there's a lot more maneuverability there, a lot more flexibility there, in that you're dealing on a customer by customer basis. By building a utility solar, something that's going to last a 15, 20 year service for a very large customer group, a lot of load, 1.7 terawatt hours are what we're projecting. These developers do have to have certainty that we are going to be the off-takers of that supply for a long term, because for 1 megawatt of capacity can be between $1 and $1.5 million. So these are huge investments, and they're long-term investments. So while I was thinking as Connor was talking, a good analogy would be if the city decided tomorrow to build a new water plant, and a large facility that is going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, those construction costs may come down, but there is a point in time where you have to lock in those costs for a large scale construction, and that's really what we need to be looking at here. One other thing, while I'm here, I will speak about the community grant, because it's a very important part of this, and one thing that we spend a lot of time focusing on. AEP Energy, being an energy company, is focused on the community, but we're not the experts. So as part of our proposal, what we submitted was that we would work with a couple of community champion organizations that could help us guide the best program for the community. And specifically, we are partnering with Impact Community Action and the Columbus Urban League, targeting the 8 Opportunity Zone neighborhoods to deal with things like the environmental justice, racial inequity, affordable housing, things that the city has told us that are important. And our commitment to that was to put it into a response to the RFSQ that the committee submitted this summer. I spoke with both organizations electronically last week, just to communicate to them and keep them up to speed. And we are looking forward to engaging with them in the near term to start to build out those ideas and programs that Kathy was talking about, and what the city has indicated to us as a priority.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. And just one quick follow-up based upon your response, and I don't know whether it's you or a question for Scott, but as we talk about those different terms, so 12 months, potentially longer, again, based upon locking in to make sure that those assets are paid for in order to make this within the marketplace a reality. So potentially that goes the price can go up, the price can go down based upon what's going on. So when that potentially happens, how will ratepayers within the pool find out that their rate is going up or their rate is going down? Will that be sort of the same process in which they're being informed now, or how would that information get to the consumer?
So yes, we will be sending out regular notifications. With the opt-out process, we will have to dictate what the price and term is. So we'll have the initial opt-out period. Also, the master supply agreement that will be negotiated is a public-facing document. So we will have pricing in there for the general public to review and look at all the components of it, because it's complicated. And but it's important to the city, it's important to Trey Bell that this is a very transparent process. So if we have a major price change or anything of that nature, which we are not anticipating, we think that we'll be able to structure a program and a product that has a fixed component for a very set period of time, that we can then communicate that out to the constituents and then have it locked in. If there's a price change, then we'll have communication mechanisms to get that out into the public and so that they're notified.
Yeah, not to get too in the weeds on this, Council Dorans, but as long as the opt-out disclosure identifies how the rate change will be calculated, when the rate change, the resulting rate pursuant, to the point, and disclosure may vary. So if it's as long as we capture, we can do a one-time opt-out letter, but it has to be very clear about how this rate is going to be variable. And so if it were, as an example, to be a 12-month program, so it'd be a 15-year program with 1 year, so it's fixed for 1 year at a time, then you could capture that in the document as long as we are able to communicate to the residents how the rate will change and be calculated and when the rate will change. So, and then from there, we wouldn't need to send out additional ones. There are other ways to do it where you could send out a letter every single year if you can't capture that language in the one document. So it is sort of clear as mud. Sorry.
Yep. So Scott, just probably a one-word answer here because we have to wrap up. But when those price changes happen, people will. So if they don't like that price at any point, one, they will be informed of it, and they will still have the option to opt out at any time they want, correct?
The answer was yes.
There we go. Thank you, Scott. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this evening. I just want to say thanks to everyone who joined tonight for this hearing, our guest speakers, and those watching virtually at home. I did want to mention we obviously are meeting virtually due to the COVID-19 crisis. Since we're talking about energy prices, right now there is a payment assistance program for folks that may be behind on their utility payments. If folks are in need of that, please contact my office. We connect you with either the Department of Public Utilities or an appropriate nonprofit that has been provided CARES Act dollars from the city of Columbus. So if you know anyone who is in that position right now, we know that COVID-19 is not just a health crisis, it's an economic one. Please make sure that you contact us and we will try to do our best to connect people. So thanks for being here tonight. I want to thank my council colleague, Emmanuel Remy, who's the chair of the Environment Committee, who's getting ready to literally host another public hearing right now, which is why we have to wrap up. So they want to thank my other council colleagues for their support of this program, Aaron Beck, Scott Belcastro, and Frank Wilson for being here tonight and providing a really great in-depth presentation, but also taking time to answer questions of the public. And I think we've got a couple of follow-ups, which we'll make sure that we make happen here as well. Want to thank the members of my team for putting this together, Kevin McCain and Hannah Miller, the CTV crew, the council clerk staff, especially Angie Burks and Mark Carter for putting this hearing together and all the other public hearings that councils have been having of late. Thank you very much for your work. As it stands right now, ordinance number 2648-2020 to adopt the operation and governance plan attached hereto for the city to effect a governmental electricity aggregation program with opt-out provisions pursuant to 4928.20, of the Ohio Revised Code, which was approved by the majority of electors in the general election held on November 3rd, 2020, and to declare an emergency, will be up for a vote for passage on council this Monday, November 23rd, at our regular council meeting starting at 5 o'clock, which folks can access virtually as well. I encourage those looking for more information to visit the informational website at cleanenergycolumbus.org. And again, folks, whether it's this topic or any other, folks are welcome to email me at radorans@columbus.gov. So thank you all for being here tonight. And with that, I will be gaveling out this public hearing of the Public Utilities and Environment Committee of Columbus City Council. Have a great night, and please wear a mask and socially distance out there. Take care.